Hello, this is Angela with Progress Permaculture. It is a rainy December day here in Portland, Oregon in Zone 8B. We're going to be taste testing persimmons today, both from my garden and a couple from the local Asian market for comparison. Now, I grow Early Fuyu and Nikita's Gift. Early Fuyu is an Asian persimmon, Diospyros kaki. My husband who speaks Greek will probably criticize my pronunciation for that, but they're an Asian persimmon and they do really well in our climate, and I have a number of videos about growing and harvesting Early Fuyu persimmons. I also have a Nikita's Gift persimmon, which is a hybrid between the Asian persimmon and the American persimmon, Diospyros virginiana. It did not produce well for me this year. I think it had what is called parthenocarpic fruit drop. I lost 99% of the fruit off of my tree. When it was about 80% mature, it just dropped everything. So I don't know if I need another pollination partner for it or if I need it to just get a little bit older. Really frustrating year. My Early Fuyus produce fantastically well for me consistently. They took 6 years to really start producing, 7 until I got a decent crop, but now they are a reliable, consistent producer in my climate here in Portland, Oregon. So today I want to taste test Asian persimmons for you. These are Early Fuyus. First, let me say, you might see they're a little bit wrinkled. That's because we harvested them a number of weeks ago, and Asian persimmons are a wonderful crop for drying. They dry very well, and there's all kinds of techniques. I'll link down in the description to some techniques for drying your Asian persimmons. Besides slicing them and putting them in a dehydrator, they actually are a kind of fruit that you can dry whole quite well. I picked them a few weeks ago. Here, some people wait until you get a first frost. They tend to get a little bit sweeter. And some folks wait until they kind of start falling off the tree. For me, I have trouble with competition from birds and squirrels. And so I find especially birds like the Steller's jays and the scrub jays go for the ones that are at the very top, and they get all kinds of peck marks in them. So once I start seeing that kind of damage from birds and from squirrels, I go ahead and pick all of mine. And I pick them typically when they're very, very hard. And then I need to let them soften in the house. Now, you may have heard that there are astringent persimmons and non-astringent persimmons. Early Fuyu is a non-astringent persimmon. You can eat it when it is hard like an apple, or you can let it soften until it is almost like jelly. And either way, it's really, really good. Astringent persimmons, like this one here, you have to eat when they're super, super soft, like jelly, basically. If you try and eat them when they're more firm, like your Fuyu, you will find that it sucks every bit of saliva out of your mouth. If you've ever eaten an underripe apple, it's the same experience. It will just, it's just very unpleasant. You don't want to eat an astringent persimmon when it is still astringent and has not softened up. Myself and at least 2 of my kids are going to be taste testing these for you guys today. And I have an extra one that I bought. Now this is a bit of a splurge. This is the Hyakume persimmon. They're rare, they're expensive. I bought one. I've never tried it before. So I thought we would compare today the Hyakume persimmon, my Early Fuyus, and the astringent Hachiya persimmon, for flavor and texture and what we think of them. If you've never had the opportunity to try a persimmon, I hope that you can find one. In our area, your local Asian market is probably your best bet in terms of cost and variety. Both of the Asian markets near us have home growers that sell to them. So you can get some really unusual varieties like the Hyakume, because people are growing them in their garden and then selling them at the local Asian market. And so there's much greater diversity than what you might be able to find in your traditional grocery store, and you're supporting a small local business. Now, I do want to say, if you are growing your own persimmons, please watch some of my videos about persimmon cultivation, because there are specific climatic requirements, there are specific harvesting requirements, and there are some kind of, eccentricities and foibles to each variety. Early Fuyu is a variety that for a lot of people has a very alternate bearing habit, and I have found that to be true for me. It bears every year, but in alternate years, it bears incredibly heavily, and then the other years, it bears more lightly. Some folks have found they get almost no fruit in those alternate years. So you just want to be aware of what you're getting into. Okay, so here you can see the 3 varieties, the Early Fuyu, the Hyakume, and the Hachiya. This is a very typical shape that people will call the Fuyu shape, and This is a typical shape that people will call the Hachiya shape, and I think that is because most Americans are only familiar with those two varieties, and there can be kind of a misconception that this shape equals non-astringent and this shape equals astringent. And if you are in Asia or you have the opportunity to browse the One Grain World catalog, you'll realize that this shape is actually completely independent of the astringency of the fruit. So there are astringent persimmons with this classic squat fuyu shape, and there are non-astringents with this shape. They're just more difficult for North American growers to find. And then you see the Hyakume is kind of in the middle. It's a little bit fatter. Something else to note is that some persimmons are more yellowy orange, some are really brilliant red color, like this one. The Hyakume is brown inside when it is ripe. Now this is a non-astringent persimmon that, like the Fuyu, is good, hard and crunchy like an apple, but even better when it gets soft and squishy like it is now. So we're gonna cut these three open, and some of my kids are gonna come taste test with us. Sometimes when you purchase persimmons, you'll see little black spots all over them. Those are called sugar spots. And whether it's a myth or a true fact, some folks believe that those develop after the persimmon is exposed to more cold weather, and that they mean the persimmon is sweeter. So if you see little black dots or striations, especially around the top of your persimmon, that's not considered a bad thing. It's considered a marker of higher level of sugar in the fruit. Okay, let's cut into these three. Now, it's almost easier to eat this with a spoon than it is with your hands, and you want to eat just the pulp inside. Now, depending on how your fruit has developed, it may or may not have seeds. Let's start with the Early Fuyu. And again, a little bit wrinkled because they've been sitting on the counter for a while, still perfectly good to eat. You can see that really lovely orange color all throughout, still quite juicy. So this is the Hyakume. It's kind of in between that really soft gelatinous phase. It's a little bit firm still, and it should be brown inside. There also is a variety of persimmon called the chocolate persimmon, which I think folks have mixed opinions about. So you can see here we're really softening. It's a little bit brown inside.
You know, there's also yellow persimmons. It's like a sexy tomato.
So as any of the persimmons get more and more ripe, they get really transparent looking. I don't know if you can see that. And really a very jelly consistency, still perfectly good to eat and really, really tasty.
It's like jam.
Yeah, it's like eating jelly.
Edit it in post.
Okay, ready? Okay, I got Ruth and B, and we are gonna taste test all three of these. This is the Early Fuyu, the Hyakume, and the Hachiya. And we're gonna give you our opinion. So let's start with the Early Fuyu, which again, you can eat it anywhere from crisp like an apple all the way to very jelly-like consistency. I don't like to eat the skin on either the fresh ones or the dried ones. Wanna try a piece?
Yeah.
Try a piece. Okay, what do you think?
It's quite similar to a pear in texture and consistency.
I think it's less grainy than a pear.
And it's sweeter.
What do you think, B?
It kind of tastes like really sugary. If I were to do this over again, I would put lime juice on it.
I tend to describe for people when they ask me what my Early Fuyu persimmons taste like. I think it's like eating brown sugar in fruit form. It has a very brown sugary quality, and it's not sour. There's no sourness to it. It's very, very sweet. I think
there would be, but
when you let the persimmons get soft, that really brown sugary quality, I think, lends itself really well to bundt cakes and muffins. The pulp is really good. Any recipe that calls for applesauce, if you use persimmon pulp, it'll be very sweet and really, really delicious and have kind of a lovely goldeny brown color. So now we're gonna try the Hyakume, and you can see it's got some of these sugar spots and like a brownish color. If you see that, that's normal. It should be brownish inside. So we're gonna try this one. I've never had this variety before, and this was about 6 times the cost of any other persimmon variety in the Asian market. So it's definitely a specialty.
it's like aggressively sweet. This one's a lot more sweet. And
Oh, it's really, really sweet.
It's more of a chewy, jello-y texture. Like the first one,
it's more ripe.
If I was blindfolded, I would just think it was a normal pear, but this is definitely more chewy.
And much sweeter.
Yeah, it's very placenta-like.
I can't say that.
You can.
No, I'm not saying that. What do you know what chewing like a placenta tastes like?
I've seen videos.
You know, from TikTok.
God.
Oh.
I agree. It's incredibly sweet. It's almost overwhelmingly sweet. You can see how, like, in cultures before we had, you know, like refined sugar, that this kind of fruit sugar was really important as a sweetener and important in people's diets. It's probably the sweetest fruit I've ever had. It's super sugary. I do see why this variety is so highly prized. Maybe I need to add one to my garden. Really good. So this is the Hachiya, which the first time I had one of these was decades ago, and I thought it was really slimy because you eat it when they're very, very soft and like jelly goo, and again, almost easier to eat with a spoon.
Maybe not.
I feel like this has more of a subtlety to it. It's less sweet. It's not
very mango-like, but not the flavor or like the disintegrate your flesh way. Like just like very soft.
They don't have that enzyme that meat tenderizes your mouth like mangoes do. It was very different than the other two persimmons. It's not as sweet, and it has a definitely like a different note to it. So, what do you guys think? What was your favorite?
I liked none of them.
I liked the last one the most.
You like the last one the most, but you do like when I make persimmon bundt cake, you definitely have eaten all of that every time I've ever made it. So maybe for some people it baked into things, you might enjoy it more.
Yeah.
There's still like a little astringency on the back of this.
It's just like
by the way.
sweetness, and it's not very complex. It's not a complex fruit.
I agree. Okay, so thanks, girls. Thanks for watching with us. I hope if you are considering purchasing Asian persimmons for your garden, that you'll check out some of my videos on growing them. I highly recommend One Green World. They don't sponsor this channel, but that's where I bought my persimmon trees and have a huge selection. I will be back from outdoors in my permaculture garden next time.
You know what you say? Guys, I just want to let you guys
That was
know,
my least favorite.
We're really excited to announce that Fall Out Boy is announcing their 8th album. They're not sponsoring us, but if you support this channel, you'll support Fall Out Boy.
Thanks for watching today. I'll be back really soon from outdoors in my permaculture garden. If you're interested in supporting the work of this channel, you can check out my Patreon down below, and please consider clicking like and subscribe.
And consider streaming Fall Out Boy's 8th album on streaming platforms soon.
Okay, bye.